we started receiving emails with links to Peacock and what they did with this um, Chiefs versus Dolphins, whatever the playoff game here.
Okay.
As you can see, I don't even know what I'm talking about. What I thought was interesting about this is if you know Dave Bodery and Jason Bailey, we could give a about football, but what we do give a about is being over by streaming services and commercialism. So you guys must have picked up on that because for all of you who are listening to us, you know that we genuinely are not football humans. I mean, that's just the truth. We are the least knowledgeable about football, okay? And I was raised
do
in a
know the
society
Detroit Lions are doing very well this year for the first time in decades, so that's cool. But I haven't followed. No.
At any rate, when I started reading it, boy, you guys are fucking pissed. Not just about what Dr. Eddie Gizmo Gomez wrote in, but a lot of you were highlighting shit I didn't even know. That, for instance, in order to watch this NFL playoff game, you had to have a subscription to Peacock. You
I
couldn't
assumed
watch
that, but yeah,
any
okay.
other way. So people who are avid NFL fans, not just of the Chiefs or the Dolphins, but just want to watch the entire season of how football plays out, you had to get a goddamn subscription. Then once they got the subscription, people who had never signed up with Peacock, not ever, or had any inclination to do so, it's just like Edward said, you had to watch it live. You didn't get the game again. They didn't have it on a way that you could go back and watch it again, like most streaming services.
Right.
On top of that, you had to be tortured through commercials. You not only had to pay for Peacock, you're getting doubly, you're getting in the ass and your mouth at the same time. They made you watch commercials after you paid for Peacock.
Mm-hmm.
After you paid for cock, you got cocked. So the thing is that people are furious about this. Then to add even more salt to the wound, this is all shit I didn't know until you guys started using One Day Closer to Dead as your, I guess, mouthpiece to talk about this. The NFL, and who's the Grand Poobah, Roger Goodall or whatever
It
his
used to
fucking name.
be. I don't know if he stepped down or if he's going to, or but as far as I know, like he used to be the head honcho.
He's still the head. Anyway, at Peacock, the head of NBC, Roger Goodell, all these they basically did a highlight reel of how they achieved this is true, Dave. You might know this already. Maybe you don't. This is true though. The most streamed thing in the history of streaming television was this Chiefs versus Dolphins game. The most streamed thing that has ever been streamed in the history of streaming ever streamed. And so they keep basically throwing it out there and having, a suck off party to themselves that they did this. And everyone's like, you connived us into getting this thing. Some of us didn't even watch the entire game. We weren't able to rewatch the game. Then you made us watch commercials through the whole thing. So even though they come off looking like successes, the NFL fans out there are furious at this situation. So I thought it was interesting because when Edward sent that, I was like, well, that does suck. Yeah. I didn't know. You guys are pissed. I mean, I'd say 75% of the emails we got, 25 of it was Jason, you're amazing. The other 75% was Peacock and the NFL. Interesting shit.
Well, let me start in on that. So as we talked about before back in the day, but for those that are unaware, so when WWE, in one of the last like really good moves Vince McMahon actually made, was when he went all in on a streaming network, because he kind of did that against the advice of his own like financial advisors and shit. He took a big bet on it because it was basically cannibalizing their pay-per-view business. But and I think Vince is a horrible piece of shit, but in this case, he bet correctly and he wasn't wrong. And it was a huge success for them. And the WWE network, as you and I were very excited about at the time, actually is about 10 years ago, because it was right before WrestleMania 30 when it launched. And we're coming up on 40 in Philadelphia, actually, in March or April, depending on what day that falls on. But I digress. So the WWE Network was like a fan's dream. You could, pull up all sorts of archives and you could watch all kinds of stuff. Now, there would be some things that would be manipulated, like they would change some of the music and stuff because they didn't want to have to repay the rights. Some shit you just can't get around. But it was great. And it stayed that way for years and years, however many. I forget how long Peacock has had the domestic streaming rights now for WWE. But then Peacock paid them a ton of money, and WWE Network got locked out of the United States. For any of you internationally who are unaware of this situation, as I think it's only the United States. I think even Canada still gets the WWE Network proper.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as soon as everything ported over to Peacock, things sucked. You could not find anything to search. You could not rewind live events. You could not, same thing as what you were just saying with the football, which is what made me think of it, was the fact that you couldn't go back and rewind and start an event over from the beginning. You can now, but for a long ass time, you could not, which was basic functionality failure that the WWE Network itself could do for a very long time. Now, in regards to this NFL game, it wouldn't surprise me if that was a feature and not a bug. And I'm not saying I agree with it, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was part of the terms that they had with the NFL, that you would not be able to rewind it. You would not be able to restream it. You only had, it wouldn't surprise me because it was the first time that an NFL game had been streaming exclusive, at least to my understanding. Again, I haven't followed it, but I remember the headlines around that. So it wouldn't surprise me. First of all, I know Peacock had to pay big ass money for it, but also it wouldn't surprise me if those terms are fairly restrictive, which again is still anti-consumer, that, you miss the first 10 minutes, you can't rewind it, you can't record it, you can't watch it after it's done. Like, that's bullshit that any streaming service is expected to be able to do now. Even if when movies come out, if they're day and date in theater and streaming at the same time, or say you're paying an extra, like when Mulan first came to Disney Plus at the same time as in theaters, whatever, and you had to pay like, I don't know, $30 or some ridiculous shit if you wanted to watch it on streaming. Even then, if you paid a rental fee, like, you would still have like a 48-hour window from the time you started it to when you could watch it,
Right.
So I don't see why this wasn't the same, at least in that capacity, where like, hey, it'll be on streaming for 24 hours, 48 hours, and then after that it'll be taken off because of whatever licensing rights. I don't know what the details are, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the NFL being the NFL, just, whatever. But yeah, and the thing that gets the TV ratings the most these days still is live sporting events, of which in the United States, at least, the biggest, in worldwide, the biggest would still be soccer, especially like World Cup, things like that. But at least domestically in the United States, it's still football and nothing else comes close. And so, yeah, any way that they can find to manipulate an audience into paying money they don't want to pay, into watching shit that they don't want to watch, it does not surprise me in the slightest that corporations are absolutely going to squeeze every proverbial drop of blood out of every proverbial stone that they can find. And again, I'm not agreeing with it. And I absolutely share Ed's outrage. And I shared it when the WWE Network went away and I was stuck with a Peacock subscription I didn't want. But I'm not surprised.